Do you want me at base or minus 20 on the pad?
I don't know, dog. Just know that I'm going to take your audio, throw it into Audition, and just put a preset on it.
Great.
So far, that's been working good for us.
Antigua.
Sometimes I increase or decrease your or my volume. That's the most editing that I do. I think our audience, they like it. I think they like the raw feel, sometimes the mistakes, the gaps, when it's clear that we're thinking of the next thing to say. Sometimes you can hear me furiously typing.
This is what we call cope.
Try and find,
this is the definition of copium right now.
To try and find background information, just...
No, but we're very knowledgeable. We're very knowledgeable.
I will say. I want to be honest with you guys. There's 4 people who saved the podcast this week.
They did. And it's for those of you, we should name them. Let's name them without shame. Because these are individuals that need to be thanked. We should even put their phone numbers and home addresses so you guys can thank them personally.
Okay, this is what I mean. It's been an incredibly busy week. When it came around to recording time, it's now almost 2 hours later than we would normally record. And we would not have recorded today, but Phil and I were just like, but there's some Patreon subscribers who sent their subscriptions directly. You know what I'm saying? We can't leave people hanging when we've received monies.
And they paid. Technically, not all of them cleared the arrears, but they are trying to. We understand. It's a tough economy, so you can't clear everything at once. So we expect the second installment of those payments because we've done the numbers. Even those that sent my 250, my 100, you have more to pay. But it's a good start. At least you've shown intention. You know what I mean? Like, when you go to a bill collector, you go to your landlord and it's been a tough month. But sorry. But at least as a sign of good faith,
I once tried to tell my landlord, when was this? Maybe 6 months ago or something. I was like, Chimbo Bata. He's like, no.
Dan, you're too yellow.
It's like, come back when the money's full. I was like, no, it's coming. I don't know what I said. I was like, no, it's just because it's not reflecting. I sat here reflector. It's like a GGG. It's like, no, come with it in full. And I was like, footy, that's why am I even paying you directly? Shouldn't we be going through an agency?
Why?
Anyway.
so you can lose 10%. You mad? Every cent counts.
Anyway,
I
don't know if you guys want your names out there.
I can tell the story now. Did I ever tell you that story? You remember. But there was a time we shared a landlord and then you moved out. And then there was a bit of an issue. And the property managers were so bad, right? After I'd proven that these people were, for lack of a better term, a dereliction of duty. It was so bad. I think you remember this because when we used to share that apartment, remember that nice luxury apartment we used to have in that leafy suburb? But you remember every 2 to 3 weeks, the drains would clog. And every time the plumber would come and he'd pick out condoms or sanitary towels or things of that nature because the sewage pipe that they built was too small and it had a dip because it wasn't the complex wasn't well built. It was made to look like it was well built and expensive, but in actuality it wasn't well built. Remember that complex?
Yes.
So because
a lot of people in Harare would understand a similar complex. It's not quite luxury is too strong a word, Phil, but it is somewhat meant to be upmarket.
But it was posited as a luxury. I think they were demanding luxury.
Nah, I feel like we're not luxury. Let's be serious. Not luxury. Let's say it was an upmarket apartment that we were sharing. In a complex, which was positioned as premium.
It was.
But the build quality was cheap. Management was poor. The general, but if you look quickly, just like your head swiping fast.
When people would come, like in the first 30 minutes, we're like, so you guys are doing it big. And then you could see the more time they spent in the apartment, the more the facade started to fade. but yeah.
We had some celebrities in there. I don't know if you remember, but anyway.
Plenty plus.
Because
Plenty
we
plus.
interviewed for the podcast in that apartment.
In that
They were
apartment,
like,
we did
this
many.
is nice. This is nice.
So that apartment, right? So after Dan left, I encountered some difficulties because one of the things that Dan does, which he's very good at, is Dan is like my anger translator. I am not a people person. I'm not diplomatic. I am very direct and to the point. And what would normally happen is I'd say my thing and then Dan would be like, Phil, are you mad? Then he'd take what I would say and repackage it to be more palatable to the property managers and so forth. Anyway, it had gotten to a point where, things had reached a crescendo because I kept pointing out where these people were failing at their jobs, right? So they were like, yo, this guy, let's get rid of him or whatever, right? And unbeknownst to me, but because the plumber and the handyman kept coming to the apartment, him and I were close friends. We were fast friends. So I was like, yo, my man, do you mind connecting me with the owner so I can just find out what's going on here? To my surprise, I contact the owner. The owner's like, apparently you're not paying rent. So, you got to go. I was like, excuse me, sir, if you don't mind, let me send you something. I sent him my copious notes, as Dan knows. I document everything. Proof of payments, the dated back, as far back as the lease. Pretty much paid on almost the same day every month. And he was like, wait a minute. This isn't the story I've been told. You know what? Going forward, speak to my wife directly, and I'm reducing your rent by 20%. Those are good times. And that's why, Dan, your landlord will speak to directly, because he doesn't want to deal with these management, these property agents. Sometimes they're shady individuals, you know what I mean? They just take 20% for doing nothing. So rejoice. Rejoice in the fact that you have a one-to-one relationship with obviously a very sound man, a very reasonable man. A man that realized you in financial terms, like, no, Dan, don't let me take the few cents you have to your pocket. Save up and come back to me.
That was not the spirit. That was not the spirit in which it was said. That was not at all what you meant. I was trying to be in good faith. Like, I know the rent is due today, but Maria Isatia clear. Holland, but then those October in the next 2 or 3 days. He's like, give me my money when it's full.
No, but also I can understand that
like,
because sometimes you don't want to reconcile and remember, okay, on this date he gave me this much, on this date he gave me man, just let me just tick the box. Let me be analog. Yes, no. I just want to do with a yes, no decision.
Meanwhile, anyway, this is not what this podcast is about. We have a short time today.
Dad's about to rant.
I was just about to give some shout outs. So again, I don't know if these people want their business out there. In fact, some of them seem to indicate in their discussions, because I'm trying to keep records, guys. So I asked for names in the case of people whose names I didn't have. And there was like some hesitance.
No, we can just share first names. I think first names is fair. I mean,
yeah, first name.
Unless they're lying
posts,
to their spouses about where they're spending money. And if that's the case, we can't help you there, bro.
Yeah, no, but these are safe names. If your name is Tatenda and you send money to 2BT, shout out to you. Mm-hmm. So shout out to you, Tatenda. I'm not going to say your surname in case you are using the family money. Shout out to yes. These were both sent by World Remit.
Shout out to World Remit. Apparently.
Shout out to World Remit for sending No. I've got their names here. So apart from Tatenda, we also have Tunde Rai. Shout out Tunde. Big up to you. And we also have as you can see, I have not yet done the records. Mm-hmm. I will.
This is live. Eh? We're doing this live,
And shout out to Priscilla. Yeah, shout out to you guys. And also, one more shout out, which came a little bit earlier. It came before last week, but we didn't mention it. But we should have. Shout out to Claire.
Oh, yes. Shout out to those people who have kept the podcast alive. And once again, we acknowledge your payments, but please remember, the first of May.
No, Phil. Let's don't be like my landlord.
If I was like a landlord, I would send the money back and be like, send this here one.
No, thank you guys. For those of you who know that you owe 2BT, I know that we have made things a little bit difficult because of living in Zimbabwe. That is really our fault, and we'd like to apologize profusely for having been born in this country against our will. Actually, I wasn't born here, but living in this country. That having been said, we did mention that if you would like to make a contribution to Two Broke Twimbos, you may do so directly. For those of you in the Patreon group, you already have my number. For those of you who don't have my number, you can just drop a comment, you can drop a DM, whatever the case is. We are doing it via EcoCash, and we are able to use it. This is actually very, very good timing because we have to renew a lot of our obligations, and we still have to pay. Oh. We also have not forgotten. We've not forgotten about the FPL winners. We're on it. I'm not a scammer, I promise. Anyway, shout out to you guys. And like I was saying, we would not have had an episode this week if it wasn't for you guys because it's been a hectic week. But nevertheless, here we are, and we've got some stuff to talk about. So Phil, let's not waste too much time. Let's actually start the show. And I have to ask Philip, are y'all
good to go?
I said, are y'all
Good to go. Sound a big thing, them. Get mad now.
Let me hear a drum play.
Welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast. Two Broke Twimbos are back one more again. My name is Danny that guy, aka Denias, aka Denford Wegumaraini, aka Denimbi, my life, your entertainment, aka World Cup is kicking it. I'm in. I'm fully in, even though I'm not watching all the matches. Aka Aguna Moment done more, but Africa, why are you doing this to us? Over to you, Philip.
Hello, thank you, Dan. As you can see, I am live in the field. It's your boy Phil Charlie, the Big Boss, Big Pizza P, Second to Love, Filthy Phil. Shabbat Jengro Drink, DJ Mkaradi, and of course, Andy. Shabbat People Visa.
Right. Boys and girls, but yeah, Nyama Visa.
We need to talk about it because I was somewhat shielded from it, but the blog was very hot. And the things I'm seeing here, might as well just get to it now, I guess. We're in the middle of
Wait, Phil. Let's start. Let me. I want us to talk about it, but let me just shout out these Zimbabweans doing it big because it's weird celebrating people after. So first of all, let's mention a couple of people. Shout out to Learn More Jonasi, who is announced as part of Trevor Noah's tour of his South African national team of comedy tour. He called me Bafani. So he announced that he'd be doing this tour with several comedians opening up for him. Learn More Janasi is one of them. Congratulations to Learn More. He will be sharing the stage with Eugene Koza, who's Trevor's podcast partner, in Tosh Madlingozi, Tabiso Mklongo, and others across Pretoria, Cape Town, and Durban this September. That's pretty cool. Someone shared it in our group. We thought we'd share it. Something else someone shared in the Patreon group. Congratulations to Zimbabwean American home cook and content creator Maxine Chikumbo, aka at Don't Miss My Plate, who was featured on the brand new cooking show on the Food Network. She is contestant number 34 of 100 contestants. Shout out to you. It's called 100 Cooks, this new show. So congratulations. Zimbabwean doing her thing. I hope you cook salsa on American TV. Do your thing. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We were going to talk about some of the Africans at the BET Awards, but we can talk about them when we get to the BET Awards. So yeah, congratulations to people who have done things and all of that stuff. Okay, now Phil, follow up from last week. Where are you at? Where in the world are you, Phil?
Somewhere. One thing I've learned to confuse the enemy. Don't let them know exactly where. Just know I'm somewhere.
Do you think the enemy listens to our podcast?
Oh, yes. Oh, without a shadow of a doubt.
No, well, I found some enemies in my comments, actually, and I...
Wait, my enemies?
No, my enemy. Well, I guess they are your enemies by extension now.
What happened?
I made a video. I made one of the things I spoke about on my tech show on radio, which I then made a video clip about, was the evidence that exists that there is a coordinated online campaign that is fueling anti-immigration sentiment in South Africa. And there's a lot of coordinated attacks and messaging that is going out there. There's a study done by an organization called Murmur Intelligence that analyzed ex-posts from South Africans and found that there's coordinated messaging. The same sort of statements are being made by bots, new accounts, etc., which indicates evidence of a deliberate effort to fan the flames of xenophobia in South Africa. So I made a video about that. The video is cooking in these streets, as they say. And there are some angry people in the comments and in the DMs. And I was like, I was just talking about you guys. So yeah.
Wait, so they were there. They found your post on Instagram?
Yes,
or on TikTok?
The bots are on Instagram and on X, on Twitter.
Oh, nice.
I'm currently being cooked on Twitter. So yeah, by bots. It's actually quite interesting. The standard insults and I'm actually seeing the pattern. There's a specific line that every bot seems to be mentioning, which is, your president has just extended his term. Why don't you focus on that? And like everyone is saying that. Like, I'm seeing the coordination in real time.
Oh, look at you having a live case study.
Yeah. It's interesting times. But yeah, anyway, you were saying that you have some observations.
So where I was, I was in your soon to be child's Musha. And I came across a few refugee camps, Zimbabwean camps, and I was really heartbroken. And when we say camps, this is literally what we mean. We mean that people that have been chased out of their homes. There have been stories in Johannesburg and in Cape Town of people being literally abducted. Their houses burnt down, their shops burnt down, houses broke into in the middle of the night. Like, imagine you're trying to sleep with your family. A mob breaks into your home, destroys your property, rips you out of your bed. So you've got nowhere to go now. You don't feel safe. So you now collate and congregate with other people of your nationality, Malawian, Zimbabwean, whatever that may be. And you form camps at your embassies or consulates, wherever else it is, where you feel somewhat safe. But they obviously aren't built to house people, especially of these quantities. So they just have makeshift tents, sometimes open air. Keep in mind, some of your possessions have been stolen. So you don't have your blankets. You don't have your heater. You don't have the creature comforts that you'd have in a home. And it's in the dead of winter. And I'm seeing it very close to another consulate here where I am. And it's so heartbreaking every night driving by seeing it. And I don't know, man. Like, in as much as Africa has its problems, every country in Africa has its problems. Everyone is just trying to make a living. Everyone is just trying to make a way out. It is heart-wrenching, especially when you pair to what you just said, that there's a coordinated bot attack, which means there are nefarious people behind the scenes fanning these flames and literally killing people, literally destroying people's livelihoods. And the question is, ultimately for what? Like, this world really is evil. There really are some heartless people out here, man. And it breaks my heart. It is saddening.
I was watching a lot of the sentiment with keen interest around the marches on the 30th of June. And I mean, here you're seeing like in real time, right? So we can take out the bot element and you're seeing like actual people. And I could see that a lot of them genuinely felt like we are part of a revolution. We are doing something to fix our country. We're so proud that we're putting ourselves in danger to go and fight against this threat that is, causing problems to our country. They genuinely feel, that they are, you see them like all these people that were marching, and then, the news is in their face, and you could see that they have this revolutionary spirit that they feel that they give God. And it's like, I also kind of feel sad for them, because whether through misinformation or just through ignorance or whatever, right? You're in a desperate situation in the most unequal country on the planet. And you feel like you're finally doing something about it, but you're so mistaken. You're so. So I feel for the people who are being attacked. I feel for the Africans being targeted, but in a strange way, I also feel for the South Africans, the indigenous South Africans who, I guess, were so easily manipulated, or who have built such strong sentiment without critical thinking.
I think they're also desperate. Like I get it. Like, and there's so many conversations. So I think you and I, Dan, it's fair to say, like, we're middle class bourgeoisie, right? A lot of my friends are middle class bourgeoisie, but I would like to think that I try and empathize with people from a different social strata. And I try to understand their plight. I try to understand their concerns. I try to understand where they're coming from. Oh, sorry. Just give me that. Oh, dear. You're going to have fun editing this. I just realized I haven't been using AirPods this whole time. Listeners, sorry. There's going to be some feedback. Anyway, I try to empathize with them. And so the conversations have always been rooted in this, like, but Zimbabweans are contributing X amount of dollars to the tax base. People don't realize that X amount of billions of rands are being circulated because of Zimbabweans, that the money being sent back home, and they upholding the transport infrastructure, and they're holding up this, and they're holding up that, and the service industry and tourism and all this, that, and the third. And I'm like, yes, guys, from a macroeconomic standpoint, that may very well be true. But how is that putting food on a South African's table today? Right? This is literally a bread and butter issue that has been weaponized. And I don't think these people hate Zimbabweans because Zimbabweans are inherently evil people. They hate Zimbabweans because they feel Zimbabweans are taking money from their plate. And when that is considered, it's difficult for us to have a counter argument to that, right? Outside of how do we solve the problem today? They feel that burning down someone's house is going to feed them today. They feel that raiding is going to solve all these problems. And it won't, obviously, because they can't think that far ahead. But by the time they make that realization, are they going to be filled with so much remorse that they have an about face and they literally go back to Mufagosi or Mtare or Kwadzana or Blantyre or whoever else and say, hey guys, sorry, come back?
I don't think those macroeconomic conversations are what's important. I mean, I saw people saying stuff like, don't you guys realize that your hairdressers and your nail experts and your delivery drivers, those are the foreigners that you're trying to kick out? And I suppose it's coming from, there's good intentions, right? But okay, I think there's two things here. The first, and I think the most important, is humanity. Guys. Before the white people drew lines, however long ago, before we sit here and discuss the macroeconomic discussion about who belongs where, whether a human being can even be considered illegal just for existing. Before we discuss all of that, just from a human perspective, come on, bro. Burning, killing, destroying. I can understand, okay. We've all had, let me not say we've all, but it's a common occurrence in African households where you've had extended relatives who've lived with you for a long time. That cousin from Kumusha who's been living in your house for years. Now imagine we get into hard times. You may start building resentment as the kid in the family that I can't afford this or that because I have 3 cousins in this house that my parents also are paying for. So now the direct children cannot afford because of the cousins. That could be a frustrating space to be in. Maybe you even develop resentment to an extent that you want to kick out the cousins. They must go back kumusha so that we can try and afford. I can almost understand that. I do think it's a bit cold. I think it's a bit cruel, but I can almost understand that sentiment. I think any conversation of trying to understand is out the window if the solution is I'm going to kill my cousin. Yeah, because look, we can't even afford food here anymore because he's here or she's here. Like, yes, we may have a conversation. Yeah, but maybe you don't realize that she's actually doing a lot in the house. She's the one who helps with this and this and this. That's not the important thing. Yo, the humanity, you wouldn't, like, if your thought is to kill, maim, injure, we are no longer having a real conversation. There's no room for me to try and understand how you're feeling. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing, it's bothered me for a while. I can see that the narrative is, every time anyone talks about this, remind them that these are anti-illegal immigration protests. And that confuses me. Because there's already a law. That's why it's illegal. If someone is caught being an illegal immigrant, they get deported. That already exists. Maybe you want it to be enforced, in a tougher stance, but the law is already there. There's already a mechanism against illegal immigration. So what are you protesting? What are you marching for? What you want is to scare people by beating, killing, stoning, looting, so that they leave by themselves. But it's framed and painted as, this is for our government. It's a protest against illegal immigration because we want them to know that we don't like illegal immigration. The government already has laws against illegal immigration. They're already there. The police are already there. The immigration officers are already there. You don't want anything to change. You just want these people to be caught. And I mean, it's also pretty clear, like, no one is buying the insistence of using the word illegal because so many people at this point have said that we don't care whether you have papers or not. Abahambe. That's what everyone just keeps saying. So I find it very difficult to be sympathetic when the solution is killing, maiming, torturing, beating. I can understand frustration. So initially what I'm saying is like, I do kind of feel sorry for people who feel like they're fighting for their rights and whatever. But you've now reached the stage where your goal is to kill your cousins because that's your solution. Anyway, I don't think we should spend too much time on this. We'll end up there's enough conversation about it already.
I think the topic, the time we discussed this topic, this was I think like 2-3 months ago, and we had a very balanced discussion. I feel, and we had a lot of feedback on it, and I can understand the frustration, right? So, and it's one thing to understand and empathize with the frustration of the South African people. It's another thing to see the actions offset frustration and how it's being used to manipulate people. And it's also another thing that I've come to understand is South Africa has a very violent history. Apartheid was incredibly violent. And there was never truly any addressing of that. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission it was literally just guys putting up their hands saying, okay, yeah, I did this, my bad. But there was no actual consequence. Outside of a few cases, there was no actual consequence for it. So there was no real justice, right? And there was no real healing. There could never really be any healing for it. And on top of that, there was no actual correction of it, right? The white monopoly capital that existed before apartheid continued to exist after apartheid. And they continued to benefit from that white monopoly capital when all the foreign investment started coming back into apartheid. Because we know apartheid, one of the reasons it ended was because it became economically untenable. And the people that benefited the most from apartheid ending were the same people that created and benefited from apartheid before it. So there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of pain, and there's a lot of guns, there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of rape. There's so many things that have created this powder keg here. And on top of that, we are all fleeing violent situations. people in Zimbabwe, people in Malawi, people in Mozambique, they are peeing. They are fleeing. Peeing. They are fleeing different forms of violence, economic violence, political violence, and there's no way to. I don't think that there's a way to solve it. What it has been saddening and has been disappointing is how unprepared these governments are to actually take care of their citizens. The reason why people are in these camps that I just described is because the governments can't do anything for them. And as much as I've seen other governments like Malawi, like organize buses, those buses aren't enough. They can never be enough. That's why there's such a backlog. And there was a tragic story yesterday of 11 people passing away at Messina because one of the buses had an accident and tipped over. And that's one of the real cost of this is I
think it was 11 people injured.
We've all been let down by our governments to varying degrees. And if we were able to direct this energy in some useful way back at our governments and say, "Sha, guys, can you at least tinyareo?" You know what I mean? But no, we must. For me personally, while I'm dealing with this, and it was quite ironic because I was actually in the area when he posted this tweet. Now I have to look at Wigno arguing with Rutendo about how much his mention is worth. And now we have to ask ourselves, could that money not have been used to, uplift the nation and create jobs and opportunities? If maybe a solar project had more than one shack, maybe things would be better off. And slight pivot, but
people can use their money out.
Do you think he writes his captions by himself?
Yep.
So you think he spends all that time thinking that nonsense, and then he's like, okay, now this one I need to capitalize. This one needs to be capitalized. This one I'm going lowercase again. This one I'm going capitalize again. This one.
Bold of you to assume there's thinking involved.
But there's something.
Phil.
There's something happening.
Look, okay, you know what? The root of so many problems, everything is the economy. The root of so many problems. Do you get what I mean? Like the migration outwards, all the conversations I hear about the music business, all the conversations I hear about what property should be like and da 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 da. It's all the economy, man. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, this is the situation we're in. Let's move on, Phil, because we've got I think
in line with this. Actually, you just brought up a thing that I did actually want to discuss: music business. Mm-hmm. And so we've now been seeing a bit of a pushback in Zimbabwe and other countries. Mm-hmm. I think more so in Zim. I haven't really seen much pushback outside of soft discussions that I've been having with regards to South Africans now performing in African nations or to the diaspora, right? So this week alone,
this is a great conversation. Actually,
Musa Keys was announced and then unannounced for the bonfire, the Bollinger's bonfire. Is it Zambezi? It's Zambezi, sorry. Zambezi bonfire.
It's Zambezi.
And then Mafiki Zolo, who basically, I'm pretty sure they have homes in Zimbabwe at this point, was supposed to be performing at a Buddy Beats concert, and then they were taken off the lineup. Did they officially announce they'll be removed from the lineup, or did they just Control X them from the Photoshop poster?
Yeah. Not even Control X, just delete, backspace.
Mm-hmm. That's controlling. You just select layer.
They wrote updated lineup, and then they put up the poster minus Mafiki.
But no explanation as to why.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, one, I think it's a fair thing to do.
Allow me, just before you explain, I just want to tell the story because some people might not understand, right? So, after the rising tensions coming in South Africa with the xenophobia, or I guess more accurately, the Afrophobia, many Zimbabweans were calling for the boycott of South African acts in Zimbabwe. So there were several concerts that were lined up, including the Buddy Beats concert that had Mafiki Zolo as the headline act. There was the other one that you mentioned, that the Zambezi Bonfire, that had Musa Keys, and there are a couple of others lined up. In fact, I'm pretty sure others have quietly changed their plans. But yeah, they had South African acts. So many people were calling for the boycott. So while no one announced actual cancellation of South African acts, they just kind of, low-key removed them from their lineups. So that's what we. In case you're wondering what we were referencing. But yes, now Phil, please go.
Breaking news! I've been told doing my research that Zimfest has been told to cancel their piano stage in the UK. This is through thorough research that I've been doing in the streets.
So the news is that they've been told.
Well,
I
this
hate
is
that's
from sources familiar with the matter.
That's like the sad thing is that's a 90% of Zimbabwean news is Ningi has called, Ningi has said, Ningi has called on this to say, Ningi has said this. I'm like, yo, this is not news. This is just someone said something. But anyway, someone said that these concerts must be cancelled. What are your thoughts here? I have complicated thoughts here.
Of course you do.
Yeah, I want to hear you.
Let's break into them. Let's go.
I want to hear what you were saying first. So you said you think it's justified.
So once again, I think some form of protest to evoke a response from people, or evoke a response, because artists are some of the most powerful voices, and we've discussed how powerful music is. And I think musicians hold a lot of sway, they hold a lot of influence, which is why I'll continue to stand on the fact, and I mentioned it in a tweet, I think we did speak it on the podcast as well. I give PC a lot more credit, a lot of credit for his stance, and he took his stance early. PC came out and said straight up, I ain't with this xenophobic nonsense. These are my people. I'm standing by that. I'm not with this. And for that, I'll always be like, I know, I got you, my G. Because he took a stance when it was really unpopular, it was really difficult. And a lot of people, a lot of South African artists have been playing double dutch. They've been speaking out of both sides of their mouth, if they speak at all, right? A lot of people don't have opinions, don't have stances, don't have views. They just, are just being very loosey-goosey. So I think that's the only thing we can do. One of the few things we can do outside of holding our politicians to account is to say, yo, if South African people are treating us like this, and the people that have the influence to say something, who are making money off of us, like we are paying literal US dollars to see them, and they love those US dollars, by the way, the least we can do is, hey, yo, if y'all don't want us there, or you're not going to speak out against this, stay over there. I think that's a fair thing. That's like the least you can do. Especially when people are literally being killed, maimed, murdered, being left homeless. What I did have a problem with is a friend of ours and a popular writer then came out and said something to the effect of, after all these protests, I would like to see people support Zimbabwean artists instead of supporting South African acts. And it wasn't like it was framed in a way of like, if you guys aren't spending your money here, you should spend your money there. And I took problem with that because, one, us calling for the boycotting of shows that have South African acts is a literal protest, right? Supporting music and attending a show is an act of commerce and capitalism at that. Those are two separate things. You can't then say a protest is only as valuable or as justified as the amount of commerce it produces to aid capitalistic endeavors, because it kind of reduces everything we do to commerce, which to a certain degree kind of falls in line with what you're saying about the economy, but at a lower level. Because we can't then say it's wrong to kill people, don't support South African acts because they're not speaking out against people being killed or being left homeless. Let's go to the Sandwave show. That'll stop them. Like, it's apples and oranges. You know what I mean? And that's the issue I've had. I think those should be treated as two separate topics. And I think whatever means people have to agitate for change within the confines of the law, while respecting human life and human bodies, they should do it. I'm not against that. I think, to be fair, like we only have a few tools in the toolbox, and that's one of them. We don't have any else. Like we don't have much else.
Okay. I've said it before, and I think I'll underline it again. One of my big problems is creating or reinforcing camps or tribes so that it's a them versus us. Right now, it's so easy for us to say, those South Africans are doing this. South Africa hates foreigners. I think you and I both know, Phil, that likely the majority of South Africans don't feel this way. Mm-hmm. We can't know for sure, but I think it's a relatively safe bet to say that if we were to...
Of course, you'd say that you've been captured by the enemy.
To find every single South African and ask them, how do you genuinely feel about this? Do you think that we should chase out all immigrants? Most of them would probably say no. So there's a huge, not insignificant chunk of South Africans who feel that abahambe, immigrants must go. And they frame it in illegal immigrants when the rule already exists for illegal immigrants to go. So I don't know what you're protesting. The issue here is immigrants, period. Okay. So when we start saying we want to show South Africans, but we've now created a them versus us. The problem here is it's not a case of South Africa as a country wants people to go. It's just there's a not insignificant portion of South Africans who have a very loud voice who have created this problem. And what we are then doing is reinforcing that problem by then creating South Africa, this is what you're going to do, then this is what we are going to do as Zimbabwe. Meanwhile, Zimbabwe and South Africa has so much going in between that many times, I think, honestly, the only thing that's separating us a lot of times is the governments. For many of us, whether it's shopping, services, goods, family, friends, entertainment, work, we are so intertwined with South Africa that it's very difficult for us to create a them versus us, firstly. So that's from a very broad view. Let me try and narrow it down because I know there's a valid, I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying, but I do want to try and have a different viewpoint. Protest. What is the purpose of the objective of a protest? So let's say, for example, the March and March protesters, they are framing it as if we are trying to get the attention of the government because there's a problem that we feel that they haven't addressed. They're allowing illegal immigrants into the country. That's how they're framing it. The reality is, no, we just want to, this is a deadline. We want to scare them out of here. That's the goal. We feel our objective is we want to scare the immigrants out of the country so that they leave on their own. But it's being framed as a protest towards the government. That's what this march is. Again, I don't want to make the mistake of framing some kind of action of ours as a protest because I'll ask, what is the objective of this protest? Is the objective of the protest of boycotting South African acts to try and get the attention of the South African government so that the South African government has a stronger condemnation of xenophobia? If that was the objective, then okay, cool. Let's talk about it. Is this an effective way? We're going to boycott South African artists because we feel that it will get the South African government's attention. Obviously not. Is the objective of this to get the attention of our government so that our government puts pressure? Boycotting South African artists doesn't do that. The real objective, if we're going to be honest, without putting any framing, is we don't know what else to do. We're just going to do revenge based on the closest label that we can find. Will average South African people, the South Africans that are engaging in this, will they be affected by this boycott? No. Will any the only South Africans affected by this boycott are the artists who are going to make money here. And you know who's going to be more affected? The fans of said artists in Zimbabwe. Now, you framed it as, what if we are trying to put pressure on these artists to also speak out? I get that. To me, that sounds like a solid objective. That, hey, we don't want to support artists who are not going to speak out about the inhumane treatment of our brothers and sisters in South Africa. But no one has even bothered to check what is this artist's position on the matter. Have they even said anything about it? The framing is, let's just boycott all South African artists. And I get it because it's the closest thing, it's the easiest thing to say. But what objective are you going to reach with that? It's not going to affect any governments. It's not going to affect any South African people. All it is it's an act to try and punish the closest South African we can, which just so happens to be one artist. And it's not even really that much. It's not really a punishment, if we're going to be really honest about it. It's just, it's a feeling of doing something. So I feel like it's misplaced. We're framing our protest wrong. Musicians are powerful. I agree. Musicians are powerful. But what's the objective? If we have an objective, if someone has an objective that they're trying to push, then we can communicate that. But right now, it just feels like I can't think of anything else to do. So what's the closest South African that I can think of? This. To me, it has no effect.
So, and I think this is where I'm trying to figure out how best to articulate this. You sound like the bourgeoisie people I was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because ultimately a protest, by definition, is literally that. We don't know how we can express and voice our anger. So we are going to find any form of disruption we can to make our voices heard. It may be blocking a road. It may be a march. It may be bombing a water tower, a water plant. There's a myriad of options of people that have exercised in a form of protest. So I think it's very myopic to dismiss any form of protest that does at least raise awareness, because that's what this has done. It has raised awareness. And I can tell you, as someone who has conversations with the people on the other side of this, the booking agents, the artists, the managers, the labels, they're already starting to, at least it's now a concern. Where before they could kind of get away with it because...
Get away with what?
Get away with not saying anything. Get away with not having a view. Because in their minds, there may be artists who legitimately... Let me finish. There may be artists who legitimately don't agree with this, right? For whatever reason. But they make a calculus and they're like, who do I want to alienate more? The South African fans who pay me every weekend, or my international fans who I get nice bookings from once in a while, and international payments, and my quarterly royalty statements, right? And they've had to weigh that option. How do I go about it? What do I do? And because they haven't really actually have to delve deeper into it, they've kind of got away with it. It's like, just let bygones be bygones and we'll see what happens. Now artists really have to make a considered effort and decision like, okay, where do I actually stand on this issue? What do I do? How do I appease my fans? Do I actually want to tour? Do I agree with these policies, or yes or no? And some of them might agree with it, and by all means, if you agree with it, we'd love to know. Especially when your business, your livelihood, your fandom is built on you sharing your opinions, your artistry, your talents with the world. And I think, in as much as what you're saying, will it affect governments? Not really. Will it help people in the short term? Not really. But what it will do is at the very least raise awareness about the issue. It will at least give these artists something to think about. And if these people are the most powerful voices outside of politicians, who also have unlimited tenure, because politicians are only there for as long as they get votes. Technically, artists, it's the same thing, but the votes are through popularity and fandom. They now have to make a calculated decision, but like, yo, how long, or what do I stand for? What do I want to do as an artist? What do I want to be remembered for? And can I use that to at least influence or try influence? And I don't think like a group of South African acts coming together and doing like a Heal the World xenophobe edition is going to solve the problem. But at the very least, it will change some people's opinions. Because what is the counter narrative right now to Dubula Dubula? Like, what's the popular counter narrative? Is there even a popular counter narrative being raised in South Africa? I can't point to it. And maybe I'm ignorant. And maybe you would know. But all I know is there are varying degrees to this issue. And there are people who are fair, intelligent, and I don't believe are intrinsically xenophobic. But they're also like, yeah, guys, we need to solve this immigration problem. And they've raised legitimate points of concerns, and they're like, yo, the counter narrative to this is no, but Africa helped South Africa during apartheid, therefore you guys should help us. They're like, and their counter argument, I believe, is fair, which is that's not really how reciprocity works. That's not really how, like, you guys were dealing with fighting over colonial power. And we came, and no, rather, we were dealing with that, and you guys came to our aid, and we appreciate that. But we can't then expect for our economy to be brought to its knees, or our opportunities for our youth to be reduced to nothing or minimized because of this. Yes, South Africa has a myriad of issues. Immigration might be on the list. I don't think it's the biggest problem that they have, but I think, as you just said, because these people feel powerless, they feel it's the one that they can solve. Can they solve what's going on at the Clientele Commission? No. Can they solve all these massive tenders that have been misappropriated? Not really. But what they can do is raise noise about immigration and feel like they're changing it. And the counter to that is these artists who are benefiting from international fandom and people loving their music. I think it's fair to say, yo, I love your music. Can you stand for something? The same way we expect some artists to at least stand for something.
I believe it is you who is being myopic and bourgeoisie-minded.
This is the bourgeoisie of
your claim is that, okay, let me not even address what you're saying. Let me put it this way. I think it is not giving people agency to imply that they either can't understand or can't figure out or can't think. There's two separate issues here. One, what South Africans are protesting, right? That's a whole separate discussion. I think two camps, the counter narratives you're talking about, are talking past each other, because the one is saying, don't kill our people. The other is saying, we have a problem with immigration. The one which is saying we have a problem with immigration are hearing, no, you must accept illegal immigrants. But that's not what the other ones are saying. The ones who are saying, don't kill our people, are hearing, we want to kill your people. But that's not necessarily what most of, apart from the narratives that are being pushed. But most people are probably not saying that. But there is a problem. So I think in their own solving of that issue as South Africa, the goal here is there's an immigration problem, perhaps. What is the actual problem? Because statistics show it's not as bad as many people think.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I think it's important because I think it also bolsters your point. Is remember this started with the Minister of Health when she was like, foreigners are burdening our health sector. That was like one of the first like xenophobic lights. And then the other one was we've got foreign criminals. And it's always been the foreign criminal, the boogeyman, the drug dealer, the murderer, the robber, etc. Which is different from what you described in the beginning, which is what they've been saying about illegal immigration. Because criminals are criminals. A criminal is a criminal no matter whether they have a valid passport or not, right? And I think anyone will agree, a criminal who is a criminal should be treated as a criminal, whether they are native to that country or not. No one wants criminals. I'm sure we can agree on that.
Yeah. So, but that's not what. Okay. It's a somewhat complex issue, which has been made even more complex by so much misinformation going around. So even as I sit now, I can't with certainty say what the figures and statistics are in South Africa. The most recent figures we have are from the 2022 census. And then I think they were published in 2023 and analyzed. And basically there's low million, I think it's under 3 million, around 3 million immigrants in South Africa, of which 1 million of them are Zimbabweans. But anyway, I don't know what the exact figure is, but it's somewhere there. It's a relatively low figure. And like I said, I say Zimbabweans, but there's so much interconnect. You won't even know that a lot of these people are Zimbabweans. As far as you're concerned, these are South Africans. They talk like you. They think like you. They've lived there for long enough. They've everything. So you won't even know. You won't even feel it. But that having been said, it's a somewhat complex issue. that needs to be solved, and it's not an easy solution. But long story short, the idea is I think everyone can understand that in this country, we should be able to welcome people from other countries as long as they're not coming to cause problems. So what's the route that you can take? You're welcome to come to this country if you meet 1, 2, 3 criteria, show your papers, whatever the case is. And I think for countries that have more immigrants and less immigrants, South Africa has one of the highest immigrant populations in Africa. But even then, it's by far over 90% are native South Africans. Your real issues are now black, white, colored. That's where your issues are. Economic inequality. Those are the real issues. But I will concede that immigration might be one that needs to be addressed. But it's definitely been made more of a deal than it actually is. And there's so much misinformation going on around it. But that's its own protest. I'm focusing on our goal here is, this is the sequence of events. A large portion, probably not the majority, but a significant portion of South Africans have such strong feelings about anti-immigration, Afrophobic sentiments, that they are marching and hurting Zimbabweans, Nigerians, Ghanaians, Mozambicans, whatever, in South Africa. We are rightly upset by that. What is the way to protest that? What do we want to achieve? What do we want to do? Because you framed something about earlier when you said the protest is us just trying to do something. I think protests are not above criticism. I think protests can be like, this is an ineffective protest. I'm currently watching the final season of The Boys, right? In The Boys, actually it was in Gen V season 2. There's these guys who are trying to protest against VOT and whatever. And the way they're doing it is they're going around spray painting. Then eventually someone gets with them and is like, no, what you're doing is ineffective. You're just putting yourself in danger, but you're not achieving anything. This is what I'm arguing here as well. There's certain things that you will think is a protest, right? You will think that I'm doing this because I want to achieve something. Then I'm like, okay, what do you want to achieve? If you don't want to achieve anything, if your goal is just revenge, then it's not a protest. You're just acting. If you want to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve, and I think it's fair to say that whoever is protesting, you are smart enough to ask, what do I want the end goal of this to be, of this action? So to say, we want to boycott South African artists. Why? Because what we want is we want those South African artists to speak out against Zimbabwe, against Zimbabweans who are being targeted in South Africa. Okay, we have a clear 1, 2, 3. But that's not what's being said. What's being said is, if you're going to do that, Manje, we're going to do this. And that's why I'm saying it's no longer an effective protest, it's now revenge. Now, if it was going to be the case that, okay, if these South African artists who are lining their pockets in Zimbabwe, again, I think that that's not true.
That's such an interesting phrase,
even
lining their pockets.
Even Mafiki Zolo, how many times did they come to Zimbabwe? In the last 3 years.
Dude, they come in at least once a quarter.
No.
Dude, they come in a lot.
At some point they did. Especially in the mid-2010s they did. But recently, not so much. Not as much as that. I would argue that it hasn't been more than 5 times in the last 3 years. Still, it's not insignificant. And they will feel it. The label will feel it to a certain extent. But I don't think it's as big a statement as people may think it will be. But no, either way, I'm not against.
I think it's a harbinger, right? And
let me put it this way. Hold on. Let me just do it this way. Okay, I'm not against the sentiment. I just think it hasn't been thought through enough. And I think there's something there. I'm not over here having a strong view one way or another. What I am doing is going up against people who have a strong view. And I'm saying it might not be as cut and dry as you think. So, should we boycott South African artists in Zimbabwe? Maybe. There might be some good that comes out of it, but honestly, I doubt it. But for people who say it will definitely be the thing that we're supposed to do, those are the people that I'm speaking about. And I'm like, okay, hold on. I don't think it's as big a statement as you think it is. I don't think so. I would argue, actually, that it's actually Zimbabweans who love seeing South African acts. That's why they're always headlining all these shows. We are not doing them a favor. We are enjoying them coming here. So I would say that right now, from a commercial and from a purely strategy point of view, yeah, we probably shouldn't be booking too many South African acts right now. There's just too much emotion around the whole situation. And yeah, so anyway, long story short, my point is, yeah, maybe I suppose you can boycott South African acts, and I can understand the sentiment behind it, but I don't think you've thought it through enough. If your idea is to put pressure on these guys, put pressure on them because some of them are your fans, okay, I think then that the same way that you show your love or your dislike for their art is the same way that you should be putting pressure on them. Because what you're actually doing right now is putting pressure on the promoters. So, anyway. I think it's okay.
I think how do I put this? As someone now shifting from the political side, as someone being a selfish love of the arts and culture, especially Zimbabwean love of arts and culture. The same way that I'm not the biggest fan of Jonathan Moyo. You know what I mean? I'm not a fan of his propaganda. I'm not a fan of what he did. But I can't deny what that man did for the Zimbabwe music industry. Like,
again, that's a narrative I think is again not fully thought out. But anyway, go on.
It's a dynamic or complex issue I'm trying to reduce to a few salient points because it's bigger than that. But my point being is, as you've rightfully said, it does put pressure on Zimbabwean promoters. And do I feel that Zimbabweans' desire, interest, passion in consuming music, going out, having a good time, consuming arts and culture will be reduced by the fact that South African artists aren't coming into Zimbabwe? Maybe a little in the short term, but I think in the grand scheme of things, no. And I think it provides an opportunity for Zimbabwean promoters to start looking inward and saying, okay, fine, how can we book Zim artists? And how can we make it commercially successful? And if the grand or rather the popular narrative here is South African acts are persona non grata, so I have to book Zim acts. Eventually, people will start just booking more Zim acts. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Granted, it's a bit of a deviation from the protest and a bit of deviation from this, but it's also just a side thing that came to mind now. It's like, that might be a good thing. And as a further deviation from that, sorry, my ADHD brain, I need to get this up before I forget. That Sine Wave album, whew, what a bang of an album. He had me saying fine in the gym, like loudly. I can't believe I'm using such terminology, but it's such a bang of a song.
I mean, we are seeing to a certain extent the effect that, for example, Unplugged just announced a headline act at the next Unplugged is Takura. Now, I'm sure they were already planning on having 100% local, but the last couple of editions have had SA headline acts. Makes sense that it will be a Zim act considering the political climate now.
And Dan, you are closely involved in these operations. Insider there.
I would imagine a lot of promoters, a lot of events and so on are probably sitting down and rethinking their strategies. Now, I think where I have the strongest feeling was against people who were threatening, who were saying like, if that artist comes, wait and see what will happen. That's where I'm like, okay, now.
I also think like if there's one thing I know about Zimbabwe, those are just Twitter warriors. What will happen to them? Please tell us, Jabu. What will you do? Please tell us. Where will you touch these artists?
Jabu, Zimbabwe needed Trinos or something. Anyway, okay. Moving on. Have you watched Zimbabwe's latest reality show, Philip?
No. No, let's talk about
Are you familiar with this?
No. Shut Dan.
No, this is the biggest thing in the country right now.
Dan, we just spent an hour trying to show ourselves that South Africa, talking about Kwana, you guys, we can do better, we can do good up ourselves.
This is now
you're taking us 10 steps back. Dan. I'm not involving myself in this Kwana.
These are the fruits of the person who you were just praising just now.
I am recusing myself from this topic.
Zimbabwe last week launched a high-profile Big Brother style reality show.
What's its name, Dan? What's its name?
It's called Brother in the Room. What's it called? No, sorry, no, that's not what it's called. It's called Brother in House.
Yo, I know Endemol is about to send them a cease and desist. I know Endemol is about to send them a cease and desist.
What, do you own the word brother? Huh?
You know what? Let me actually phone someone that used to work for Endemol. Let me see. Hold on. This is actually going to be hilarious.
So long story short, there are 35 contestants in a house who are going to live there for 3 months with contestants being evicted after public votes. They are all aiming to win a $50,000 grand prize. The host is Oscar Pambuka. So last week was their first. They were being welcomed into the house. It was so embarrassing. Phil.
Did you see the way
it was
they were
so
announced?
embarrassing.
Yes.
It was CCTV, like it was like you're searching for someone who stole from the office. I couldn't even watch the whole thing because I was feeling secondhand embarrassment. I was like, this is on the internet for the whole world to see that this is Zimbabwe's version. Anyway, this is how I first found out about it. Someone posted in the Patreon group, and I didn't know what it was. I was like, huh? What is this? Oh, and I just made a mental note that I'll look at it later. Then when I was posting on my TikTok, posting my videos, then I saw some person was posting, hey guys, I'm joining the Big Brother Zimbabwe house. It's like, Big Brother Zimbabwe? What? Then it just made me think of that video that was posted on our page. So then I went to that video and I watched a few seconds and I was just like, I was feeling like when you feel like something's crawling on you. I was just feeling come with embarrassment. So no, please, no. I get it. We must all start somewhere. But I refuse to believe that we don't have talent in Zimbabwe that could put together something dope. I refuse to believe we have got amazing producers and directors. We've got amazing executive. We've got them. There are people who are currently making shows for Netflix and whatever. If you've got 50,000 for a grand prize, if you can build or get this purpose-built house, you can build the budget to make a good production. Because what's the point of investing this and making a production that people don't like? Like, come on.
I've got a few ideas. I think I know why. I won't say them on the podcast, but I think I know why.
Yeah, I also have some ideas. Well, if you would like to know, I think every week they're going to have the evictions. They will have talent showcases.
Can we evict the show? Like, can we do that?
Apparently, they've hired full-time psychologists, welfare officers, and so on to be in the house because mental health is important.
Lord help us.
But I guess what they were hoping for has worked because it has gone super viral, but not in the way they want. But it is super viral. Phil, let me read this prompt to you from our producer. Phil, you've watched enough transfer windows to know hype before delivery.
Mm-hmm.
Sponsors jostling to back a show days after launch. Does that read like genuine investor confidence or a club unveiling a marquee signing right after relegation fears?
What is this in relation to, Dan?
It's in relation to this story of Brother in House Zimbabwe. I told you, Claude thinks that you're a sport expert of some kind.
I am, Dan. I'm super sport. What do you mean?
Oh Lord. Anyway, let me take this time to speak about this. And this can be our last topic of discussion, Phil, because time.
Oh, actually, I do want to discuss something, but it'll be a very quick one, but a very nerdy discussion. But we'll come back to it. I prepared so many points about it.
Anthropic has restored access to Fable 5. Quick reminder, in case you're missing it, Anthropic's latest model, which is their latest AI tool, Claude, has its latest model, Fable. Well, its latest model is Mythos, but they created guardrails in it because the US government said it was so dangerous, what. So the guardrailed Mythos is called Fable. The guardrails stop you from getting it to work on cybersecurity or on biology. Anyway, when Fable was released, US government panicked. It was then banned for a while, but this week again it was restored, so everyone can access it once again. That's a long story. So I was very sad when Fable left because I was using it to build some stuff. So now that it's back, very happy. Unfortunately, it is extremely expensive. In fact, Anthropic is just extremely expensive. What do you mean expensive? You could ask if you only use AI tools to just ask a few questions here and there. Right now, all AI tools measure your usage by tokens, the amount of tokens that are used to fulfill whatever your request is. If your request is, what day is it today? And it tells you today is orange. And it takes 500 tokens to do that. Negligible. But if your request is, can you scan the internet and find me 5 stories to talk about on Two Broke Twimbos this weekend? It's going to scan lots of websites and lots of hundreds of websites, potentially thousands of news stories, distill them, You could end up using hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of tokens. And then you get a notification that says you've used your limit, right? That's a very basic overview of what I'm talking about. Anthropic is extremely stingy with limits. It gives you 5-hour windows. Again, if you're just using it to ask normal day-to-day questions, it will just be the same as ChatGPT. You won't really notice the limits. But if you use it like I use it, so for example, I've been using it to vibe code. I actually built a tool that I used for Two Broke Twimbos this evening. I've built it's actually a, let me get a little bit nerdy here, Phil. So, apart from this podcast, Phil, I also do a weekly radio show where I analyze tech news for the week. One of the things that took up a lot of my time was I would have to sift through hundreds of news stories to find relevant technology stories. Now, I can't really use AI or Google search because I don't know what the correct terminology is, but it will spot things, but it doesn't sift or filter things. What I used to do is I would literally spend hours scrolling through every single Herald story from the past week, every single Newsday story from the past week, every single Business Times story from the past week, et cetera, to find what are the big tech stories in Zimbabwe. Then I find them. I find the ones that I think are relevant. There's a lot of my own opinion in there because I'll pick up something. I'm like, okay, this is just PR. This is just a company announcing a new product. This is just, this is something that is potentially important news. But I always thought that this is such a manual process. Surely with AI tools, I can figure out a way to do it. So this past week, I decided to finally start building it. And I was like, while I'm building this, I kind of do the same thing for Two Broke Twimbos. I scan through a ton of news stories. Well, to be honest, it's mostly through social media and whatever's trending, whatever. But the same kind of tool, which will source things based on criteria, could be very useful. So I started building this tool. Now, step one, we were using a search. Search is not helpful because search pulls up old results, because if you search based on date, if something changed on that article this week, so if someone added a new ad to that article, it will have a this week date. Meanwhile, it's a 2-year-old article. So sometimes we'll get stories that are from old when they're not, they're supposed to be now. There's certain stories that don't make it and so on and so on. So search just wasn't working. So I decided, okay, what if I use RSS feeds? Okay. RSS feed, most news publications have an RSS feed. Basically, every story comes on this RSS feed. It's just the headline and maybe the first couple of paragraphs. Now we're cooking. So I was like, okay. So I basically created my own custom RSS feed, and then I started feeding in the various publications. Lots of them had broken feeds that were not working. I basically created my own feed for all the top publications that I use, except for the ones that already had feeds in place. So now I have this feed that is collecting every single news story from the past 7 days. So I run it through.
When you say feed, are you creating an XML file or you're creating separate RSS?
So this is all within a SQL database. So it's not a separate file. So it's within the database. So it's basically every single story, just the headline and first paragraph, headline, first paragraph, headline, first paragraph. So literally there's thousands of stories. Sounds like a lot of data, but that's literally kilobytes. You know what I mean? Then it runs a fuzzy search where it looks for tech-related terms. Again, this is not AI. I'm not using any tokens yet. This is purely code. So it does this initial search to spotlight out of the thousands of stories that it's picked up over the past 7 weeks. What are the top, what are the stories that are tech? So then it surfaces all of them. So it can either have a certain word in it, or it can have certain phrasing or whatever it is that is implied that it's tech. So that it's a very large, very lenient sort of criteria. So it will then surface hundreds of stories now. Great. From those hundreds of stories, I plug it in to Gemini API. I'm using Gemini because it's cheaper than Claude, and I'm already paying for Gemini every month anyway. So for the first time, I used Google AI Studio properly this week. So I plugged in this tool into the Gemini API. So what it does now is it now takes these remaining stories, these hundreds of stories, feeds them into Gemini, and then I created a Gemini judge. The judge will then evaluate each story based on a bunch of criteria. That's what took me the longest time to sort of perfect that criteria. An algorithm, if you will. Hey, I built an algorithm. Hey! And it's working pretty good. I'm not going to lie. I'm like pretty impressed with how it's working. So it now judges each story. It gives it multiple criteria. It gives it a score. And then it gives me the top maybe 12 stories. Like these are the top 12 stories with a brief description of each story. Here's the link to the articles that all have this story. Then I created a training engine so that each time I pick specific stories, it learns more and more how to adjust the weight of each criteria because it's clear that Dan likes this kind of story versus that kind of story. So based on the stories that I pick, right now it's all running in terminal, right? So it doesn't have a user interface. But it's taken me days to build this, and I keep on maxing out my limits. But I'm actually pretty excited. And I put in place such strict rate limiting and ensuring that everything that can be done by code versus things that need to be done by AI. So I'm literally spending cents each time I run this tool. So literally I've spent 37 cents on Gemini so far. Initially, I was using the free tier of Gemini, but it kept running into bottlenecks because free Gemini only allows 20 calls per whatever period of time. And so I was like, okay, how much would it actually cost if I go per API call? Literally cents. Because
there's a hack in there that I'll come back to. That I think there's a workaround I can show you.
There is Claude actually said, because I was like, surely I can use a local small language. I don't even need a large language model. I can use a small language model because this judge is not doing insane work. It's just what's the headline? What's the first paragraph? Judge it against this criteria. In fact, even Gemini, I'm literally using Flash 2.5. It's not even using the latest Flash. So yes, it can be free if I'm using a local model, but I then have to set up the local model, and that will take a while. And so it's okay. I'll spend 37 cents, and then down the line, I'll put in the local model. So then the training model is in place, but it will only start taking effect after several weeks. Then what I did is I then took that tool and I was like, okay, so this is what it's doing for my tech show. I wanted to be able to do this for the podcast as well. So I've set up a different set of criteria. So go through preset publications. So the Zimbabwean news publications, top African news publications, top global publications, right? Get every single story, sift it using fuzzy search. So if we want to talk, for example, on this podcast, we want to talk about pop culture, music, technology. Sift it through, put it into the judge, let it judge. So my first run of the 2BT preset for that tool was today. So these stories that we're talking about are from that tool. It gave me some stories that were not right, so I need to tweak it. I need to tweak the criteria a little bit because it was now. There was some pretty cool stuff here. Because look, Phil, we're not going to talk about it, but look at this story here that Zimbabwe is going to have its first vampire show. I mean, that's interesting. We would talk about that, right? ZBC has commissioned a vampire show. I feel like that's the kind of stuff we talk about.
Oh,
ZBC's
damn.
Wild Africa Adventures.
Did your thing pick up that X-Men 97 season 2 is out?
No, it didn't. But I knew that as well. It gave me. I mean, we were going to talk about it anyway, but it gave me this Big Brother story. Although the angle that it came out was from advertising, which is weird. But anyway, I'm pretty excited about this tool, Phil. I'm telling you, next week, just watch. I'm going to get it to a stage where it's time to record the podcast. I run it. And it knows, okay, Dan and Phil like these kind of stories. It's going to give us like 20 stories of stuff that's happened in the past week. And then we're like, oh, cool. And then, of course, we still do the podcast. Same way we do the podcast, but we skip the having to search through what happened to find the stories. I'm very excited.
I was going to say, there's a way to run it with Google, right? There's a short window where Google Flow doesn't charge you tokens. So if you run your program through AppScript and then build a sheet on Google Sheets, and then that becomes the source for Google Flow to be the judge, you won't use any tokens. Because I use a lot of, I'm assuming when they start charging, because they are going to eventually start charging, but I've been using Google Flow for a lot of things.
Okay, I will check it out. The other thing I was checking out was, okay, like I said, literally I run it, because every time I was testing and tweaking, whatever, I'd run it again and run it. So I ran it multiple times this past week. The whole week I've spent 37 cents on Google API tokens.
Mr.
And
Money.
I've also put in place a bunch of rate limiting so that it doesn't, like if there's anything that has too much search or too much whatever, it doesn't get caught up in that. And realistically, it's a relatively small job. I'm telling you, I'm going to keep iterating and fixing it. After a couple of weeks, this is going to be a fire tool. I'm going to put it on the App Store there. Watch.
All right. So in line with this, since it's become like a running theme, it's time for AI Watch on Two Broke Twimbos. Dan, I don't know if you saw the latest bit of news, but Meta has announced that it's now selling its compute.
I saw that story, but I haven't fully read it.
So
Tell
I
me,
can break
Hansi.
it down.
Mhm.
So basically, Meta is now pivoting to be a boring software as a service cloud computer company, which is a bit of a deviation because if you recall, Meta was part of the big three, the other two being OpenAI and Anthropic, who were trying to build out all these data centers and use as much compute as possible, right? And the biggest purchases of compute up until this point have been OpenAI and Anthropic, and then to a certain degree, Meta. And now they seem to have done a complete about face and are now trying to sell their compute. So what this means, guys, for those that don't know, and I'm sure Dan will also chime in here, is every company that offers AI as a service or has its own model, Meta had a quasi-open source model named Llama, is they need data centers which have compute to
It was
process
open
it.
source, Phil. It was open source. It just wasn't good, but it was open source.
But its weights went to fully open source. But yeah. So
Anyway.
So we've been told that the reason why there's been so much development, there's a reason why there's been so much buy-in in AI is because we need to build out these data centers. We need to build out we need to have gigawatt capacity. We need to have all these GPUs be faster, more efficient, more powerful because there's this massive demand for compute to feed the insatiable needs of the AI companies and the people that use AI. Your Dans of the world building their weird little techie robots there. And all of a sudden, Meta has now announced that, we're getting out of the business, which essentially means that they don't want to spend more money developing compute, but they also aren't fully utilizing the compute that they currently have.
Okay, I still need to read this story fully, but I think those aren't necessarily. I don't think you've described the full potential story here. Okay,
No, I'm
this is what
giving
I
a
know.
break. I've got a full breakdown out of it, but I didn't want to get into because I didn't go on a massive tangent.
I think I saw some tweets on it, and I didn't read the full story. So I've just tried to pull up some of the tweets that I saw. Long story short, people believe that Meta is selling excess compute. Meta spent over 100 billion in 2025, 2026 building their data centers, right? They are sitting on a ton of compute. Ostensibly, it was to work on their own AI models, but clearly they are way too far behind everyone else. So now I think the way it was framed was, since they already have all this incredible compute that they're not using because no one is using their AI tools, they are then selling it to other companies. But I don't think that's actually what's happening. So first of all, Meta use AI a lot. They just don't have consumer AI applications.
No, but they do.
use it for their.
They force it down our throat. Keep in mind, right? Whenever you do a search on Instagram or Facebook, it defaults to an AI search, not an algorithmic search. The same thing with Meta. How many? It's even now become so intrusive because you remember the Meta button in WhatsApp. You had to purposely want to press it. Now it's in the bottom right corner. So if you accidentally press it when you're trying to open a chat or you're trying to archive a message, you'll open up the AI. I've mistakenly used that AI in WhatsApp feature so many times recently, simply because they put the button in such an inconvenient position because they're forcing you to use the AI
deliberately. Yeah, so now they count you as their monthly active users. But it is used quite a bit in Zim. This is something I've discovered. It is used quite a bit.
Yeah, in
but
those WhatsApp chats, I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, my point is, it's not consumer AI from Meta. While it exists, it's not at the level of ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, right? Okay, I will need to read more about this announcement. But my thinking is, they are trying to. This is a play to justify the over $100 billion investment. And to try and have revenue that comes in from this capex investment directly.
But so I think that would be how they'll try spin it. But here's one of the major things that I've seen and a few commenters are seeing is the reason why there's been such development in building out all these AI data centers and investment is because what the argument is and the economics is we're supply constrained. There is more demand than supply will allow, so we need to develop more, we need to build more so that we can meet demand, right? Now, it is peculiar, as you just said, if we're still in the beginning of this, like there are $100 billion build-outs that haven't even broken ground yet. That OpenAI has announced, that NVIDIA has announced, that CoreWeave have announced, that Anthropic have announced, that Google have announced. So much so Google is even buying compute from XAI, which also has more compute than they need because no one uses Grok, right? If we're supply constrained and you are one of the biggest platforms on the planet, especially a social media platform, the fact that you are now saying you're selling your compute or willing to rent out your compute lets us know that demand might not be that high. Especially when back in May, Mark Zuckerberg said, if they are selling compute, it's a failure. Let me even pull up the quote here, sorry. Let me make sure I quote or Marky Mark correctly.
I mean, Takarachi, who didn't know that Meta AI is lagging behind and is not really being used? Them saying, I think everyone is fixated on the word excess because it implies that you have an asset that you've already invested in that you can now sell. So the implication is we invested a ton of capex into building these data centers. Now we are doing our own stuff, but there's a ton of excess here that we can sell and make other revenue. I don't know. I get the feeling that this is just a stock market play. Say the right things so that the stock market is happy and your price goes up.
I would agree because their stock is up, I think, by 15%.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, Phil, let's consider our wind down time.
Let's wrap it up. We haven't done our weekly World Cup recap. We'll do that tomorrow, I guess, because
African teams,
kickball score, Harry Kane busted. Usual.
African teams, yeah. I'm a 1,000. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to end it here. Say thank you very much to the people who made sure that we got an episode this week. You see, we even gave you a full episode, a full 1.5 hour episode.
I mean, we can't. Once we start waffling, we can't stop. So that's what, if you too would like an extra episode, once again, we were even willing to give bonus episodes if you donate enough.
Yeah. Tikashika my excess. If we get excess donations, who knows what will come next?
Be really fine. Actually, you know what? If you've listened to this episode and you want to donate for this episode, please donate whatever figure and add 37 cents to help Dan.
Yes, just to make up for.
So I just want to do a little experiment just to see how many people will respond. This is like a call. You know, like how podcast ads put like, don't forget to use code 2BT at checkout.
Actually, you know what? We have software developers that listen. If you guys have listened to my description of this rudimentary tool that I've been building, and you're sitting there thinking, Danny, not like that. What you're supposed to do is then.
Next
up,
thing they'll
hit me
be telling you how to use an IDE, and I don't know, guys.
I'm telling you, Phil, because I've had to do so. What I've done now is so that I can still use some of the free what is it? Capacity that I have on Gemini. I've set it up so it automatically runs daily to pick up the stories, store them in the database, run on a daily basis rather than trying to
let me
pick up
show you
all
my
7.
workflow to do stories. Let me show you. It's actually quite. It's so rudimentary, but it works so well.
Oh, okay.
Let's tell you.
Show me.
Quickly, it's a fun. Okay, let me tell you. Create a dummy Gmail account, right? Get all your newsletters to send to that dummy Gmail account. Then run that through your judge with Flow. And then once it's past that, Flow will then send the qualified stories to your actual inbox and also to a Google document or a Google Sheet. Then that Google Sheet can sync with Notebook LM. Bish bash bosh to pizza.
Yeah, that's if you're working with when you see Zimbabwean news. You're working with newsletters. When you see Zimbabwean news, I'm telling you, a lot of this would be so much easier if I was reporting on American news or European news or South African news. But Zim News, I need to create this specialized tool for it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you very much for tuning in to another episode. We appreciate you very muchly. Just as a quick reminder, if you'd like to contribute, drop a DM, a message, wherever you can access us. We're on the socials. You have all our socials. Yeah. No, I'll find you in the DMs. I've set up some automations in my Facebook and my Instagram because I'm building a little. I've set up a bunch of automations. I'm quite like, things are going well. So right now I have auto comment to DM to. I've got a pipeline of comment to DM to email newsletter to WhatsApp channel. It's going well.
Yeah, I was actually wanted to ask you.
Running it.
I saw you that check DM thing.
Yeah, it's automated. It's actually Meta's own automations, but I see that it's very janky. So
the person I was following. Well, let's see. Let's have just for funsies. Let's call them back. Let's see. Wait. Hello. Don't say your name. You what? Don't say your name. We're recording the podcast. I've got an ask. I don't know. Have you been seeing the Zimbabwean reality show?
Which Zimbabwean reality show?
Oh, you have not? Well, if you have a look, I think it's called Brother in the House.
No, I have not.
Oh, okay. You should have a look because I wanted to speak to someone who might know the company that produces the actual reality show in order to find out if a cease and desist would be in order.
Wow.
Why is there a cease and desist in order?
Go look it up,
Snitches.
and then we shall report back.
You're looking it up. Oh, huh?
That can hear this live reaction.
My days.
Guys, if you see that Brother in House was shut down, Karema Zaotifil is a snitch.
Anyway, I'll talk to you later.
Phil! Okay, I'm gonna look at this. This is wild.
Oh, that was priceless.
So how can you do this?
Priceless.
How can you do this to your fellow countrymen? How can you do this?
No, I just wanted him to see. Anyway,
All
thanks,
right, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's our time. We out. Bye bye.